Welcome to episode 64, Laziness Gets a Bad Rap. Welcome to Burnout Solutions. My name is Mona Tippett. I am a registered nurse, a life coach, an emotional resiliency expert, and a mom. I love to help healthcare workers and caretakers and just busy, capable people understand their brain and nervous system so stress, overwhelm, and frustration do not run their life. Here on this podcast, we break down burnout, emotional overload, and survival patterns in simple human language. I love to give you practical ways to feel safer, calmer, and more present in your everyday life. You do not need fixing. What you need is support and a nervous system that knows that it's safe. Thanks for being here. So the other day, I was walking around my house and just looking at things that sometimes are totally oblivious to my vision, and sometimes they drive me crazy. Like I have a stack of books that I need to go through, and there's things on my nightstand that I don't love. And sometimes we have a bunch of shoes in the entryway. And then I go to my email, and sometimes there's like 8,000 emails that are just there. Like I haven't deleted them or gone through them. And my laundry basket, I'm so good at washing and drying, but not good about folding and putting away. And a lot of times my inner critic brain says, you are lazy. You're not finishing things. What's wrong with you? And my inner critic has become a lot softer, yet sometimes those words come into my head. And today I want to talk about one word specifically, and that is lazy, because I think it could be one of the most potentially damaging and least accurate words that we use, both on ourselves and on other people around us. And I just have been thinking a lot about lazy. This was inspired by somebody in my house, and I was nagging this person to get up, and this person accused me of calling this person lazy. I'm like, no, I never said that. I did not use that word. And this person said, well, that's what you meant. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And if you are alluding to that, then tell me more about that. And it was not received well. But let's just talk about laziness, because I have thought a lot about it. I think, especially as high achievers, it's hard to see people around us and maybe not label them as being lazy if they're not doing what we think they should be doing. Sometimes I think it's hard to look at maybe our patients or our students or our children and not label them as lazy. And I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I actually do not think that laziness is real, at least not in the way that we use it or label it. And since I have learned a lot about the nervous system, it has helped me understand some behaviors of people that may be labeled as lazy. Since I've been doing all my life coaching, most people I work with really are high achievers, and the word lazy almost never describes what's happening in their life. Often lazy is a label that we slap on behavior when we don't understand the cause. It's the explanation we reach for when someone, including ourselves, just isn't doing the thing that we think that they should be doing. And high achievers are especially brutal about this, right? We often run ourselves into the ground for weeks and ignore every signal that our body sends. And then the moment we hit a wall or we're super tired, we're exhausted, and we can't make ourselves do a simple task, we don't think, wow, I'm depleted. Wow, I've been ignoring my body and the cues that it's been giving me that I need to rest. Often we just jump to, okay, I'm being so lazy. Why can't I do this? And you take the one moment that your body finally insisted on a pause and you turn it into evidence that you are failing. So today I want to do two things. First, I want to look at what's actually going on in the body when we feel that stuck, like I can't make myself move feeling. And second, I want to talk about why some people seem to live there. And often these are the people we quietly just write off as lazy, and why I don't think they're actually choosing that either. So my hope is by the end, you'll have just a little more grace for yourself and a lot more grace for everyone else. Okay, so let's get into it from a nervous system perspective. I like to start with the body because that's where the nervous system lives. And I think most of us understand fight or flight. A lot of us know, especially if you've been listening to this podcast, that your stress response is kicking in and your system is giving you some mobilizing energy to deal with the threat, right? Or like our heart rate goes up, our energy goes up, we're ready to go. And the other stress response that gets talked about a lot less is its opposite. And instead of revving up, the body powers down, right? I talk about this a lot. These are actions of avoidance, and dorsal vagal shutdown is when our body powers down. Some people call this freeze. There's fawning. There's, different variations. But your system, when it does shut down, it reads the situation as too much, as hopeless, as something that you can't escape. And instead of mobilizing energy, what it does is it conserves energy. Everything slows down, energy drops, motivation seems to evaporate immediately. And you can feel heavy, foggy, checked out. Starting anything feels so impossible, right? Physically impossible. It's just the motivation to do something is totally gone. And this is the part that I have thought so much about. And what I'm trying to explain today is that when you are in that space, this is not really a decision. This is a reflex. Just like your hand is coming off of a hot stove is a reflex, just like you sometimes feel like you yell when there's an emergency. The freeze response is just the same. And it is associated with the self-conserving state. And one of the features is exactly what we would label as laziness from the outside. And being in the state can lead to a lack of motivation and a tendency to procrastinate. It can feel genuinely difficult to start a task or finish one. And that difficulty comes wrapped up in a sense of helplessness. Now, most of my clients that I work with, their second home is fight or flight. And not usually is it freeze, but for some of them it is. But I really do believe that this is an area that a lot of us don't understand. So I want to just repeat that when we are in that zone of freeze, shutdown, that's often labeled as lazy, we have a difficulty starting things, a difficulty finishing. We really do have a sense of helplessness. And if I were to describe those symptoms to you without any context, no story behind it, just describing, I feel like I can't do something. I feel like I can't finish it. I physically am lying down, et cetera, et cetera. You would probably say, yeah, you're being lazy or that's a lazy person. But that's not laziness. That is just a nervous system that has hit its limit and it has the brakes on to protect you. The shutdown state itself is real. And the experience of your system downregulating under overwhelming stress is well documented. So I believe that what looks like laziness is often your body in protection modes. Now, this is why I think the reframe matters so much, because when you actually call it laziness, the prescription is you need to try harder. You need to push through. You need to be more disciplined. You need to stop giving yourself a break. But remember, you cannot discipline your way out of a nervous system state, especially protective shutdown, because pushing harder is like flooring the gas when your emergency brake is on just as much, if not more. And the way out isn't more force. The way out, just like everything, is to feel more safety. It's convincing your body and feeling in your body and teaching your body and modeling to your body. Remember, our body learns through experience, not through learning. We can help our nervous system feel safe enough to come back online with small, doable steps instead of a huge, sledgehammer of willpower. So let's talk about, some of the people who are just that way. This, can describe a high achiever who suddenly can't function, who suddenly, is really living in burnout. But maybe you're saying, well, what if they're always like that? Because I've asked that question myself. How do people live in this state? and they seem to always be in low gear. They are the ones who, from my observation and from what I am looking at, these people don't push. They don't strive. They seem to be totally content with putting in minimal effort. And I have had lots of conversations about people that we know that I'm like, I just don't understand why minimal is what you're doing. And please explain yourself to me. And so maybe you think some people are just lazy. And I want to challenge that thought. This podcast is just as much for me as it is for anybody else, because I am learning a lot through this, and I have to keep reminding myself of this, because I really do not think that people choose to underperform in their own lives. I think what we read as laziness is almost one of a few other things wearing a disguise. So these were the things that I have been thinking about, and I wanted to walk through them. The first one is the effort reward kind of scale or math. So your brain is constantly quietly running a cost benefit calculation. Remember, we have the motivational triad. It wants to seek pleasure, avoid pain, conserve energy. And so our brain is often analyzing any situation and saying, is this action worth the energy it's going to cost me? One friend said, sometimes for some people, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. And I'm like, yes. And when evaluated that the juice isn't worth the squeeze, this isn't really a character trait. It's a basic brain function. And there is fascinating neuroscience behind it. Researchers have found that the brain literally weighs the benefit of an action against its costs through the motivational triad, and that our willingness to expend effort is tied to dopamine signaling in the brain. Remember, we talked in that dopamine is something that we are motivated by to get immediately. And some people's systems are simply more sensitive to the cost side of that equation than the effort side. Just like I say that your brain understands pain, like physical, mental, and emotional pain is the same. It's processed in the same. The brain circuits handle both physical and mental effort. So when someone seems unwilling to push, to work, to do, they may not be lacking in willpower at all, but their internal math is really just factoring out differently than ours. And let's think about how that math gets built. If you're someone whose effort has reliably paid off, which is often, these high achievers who put in the work and see the success that they get, our brain has learned that working hard is worth it. But what if you grew up or worked in a setting where pushing hard just led to exhaustion, just led to being criticized, just led to I can't do anything right, or I'm not enough, or I didn't do enough, or somebody is coming in and fixing or finishing something for me, or I put in the effort and I didn't see anything change at all. So your brain learned the opposite lesson. It learned that conserving energy is a smarter bet. So this is not laziness. This is just a forecast built from real experience. As the school year was winding down, I found myself in a conversation with several moms, and we were just talking in a group about school projects, specifically the difference between the projects that we did growing up and the ones that our kids are doing now. And of course, maybe we were just doing the thing that every generation thinks that they had it harder, right? We walked to school uphill both ways and snow up to our waist. But the more we talked, the more we really felt like something had genuinely shifted. And I don't know what is right. This is just an observation. I would love your input. But one of my good friends just said, my son had 3 weeks or maybe even a month to complete a project. And he did it in 2 class periods. And he got 125 out of 100 points. And his takeaway was, I think teachers just grade easier. I think they aren't looking for a lot of effort. Now, granted, this kid is, I believe, a high achiever. And I think school comes really easy to him. So maybe he did a really, really great job in a small amount of time. But what is that teaching him? Maybe he's just thinking, I can put in minimal effort and still do a really good job. And honestly, can we blame him because he's just responding to the system that's in front of him? Do teachers grade a lot easier? I don't know. I don't think they are spending hours of unpaid time outside of their job grading papers like they used to. And I definitely am not saying that they should. I think teaching is a difficult profession. I think about those teachers who have these big projects due, 2 days before school gets out, and grades are due the day that school ends. There's no way that they can grade and go through every single project like teachers did 20 years ago. I just don't know what these lessons are reinforcing. And I just wonder if we're raising a generation who reaches for the fastest, easiest solution. We have AI tools that write essays. We have supplements that promise results without changing any lifestyle changes, right? We have apps that track our habits so we don't actually have to build them and work on them. We have trackers for everything. And I believe as parents, we may be doing the same thing. Now, I do think it takes effort to teach differently. One example, and for sure, my husband and I are not the best parents ever, but we had a tree that was half dead in front of our house. And we had looked into hiring it to get taken out. And we thought, we have a free day. Our kids are home. Let's hire a few others and let's just do it ourselves. And so we spent a Friday. It was my husband's day off. We got a few chainsaws and a dump trailer and a big trailer, and we cut down this 30-foot tree ourselves. Did it take time? Absolutely. Was it hot? Absolutely. Did it save us money? I think in the long run, time is money, so maybe it didn't. But what we wanted to do was teach our children and ourselves that hard things are okay and it is healthy for us to do. Now, we totally believe that. Now, my husband is kind of the king of this. I took a picture of him the other day while he was changing his own brakes on his Tesla. And I laughed because I thought, I don't know very many people who buy Teslas and work on them themselves. And that's just how he is. He loves doing things for himself. Now, remember, this can be taken to the extreme. And he actually gets enjoyment from his work. But I just think, as a society, what are we modeling? What are we teaching? I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I would love to hear your thoughts, though. Okay, so the second one I thought about is overwhelm. Overwhelm is a super common emotion that I feel like a lot of us feel. And overwhelm can be distributed differently. So two people facing the same to-do list are not carrying the same internal load. One of them might have a more emotional weight, less regulation capacity, or history that taught them that certain tasks are dangerous. So they hit their overwhelm ceiling a lot faster. What looks like from the outside, like, oh my gosh, you gave up so easily, you're not even trying, is really their system reached capacity at a point that yours hasn't reached yet. And you don't see the load, you only see the stopping. And I think that's really important to remember, that our lived experience does create our perception in all areas, but especially with a to-do list and things that we need to accomplish. If we have a lower baseline, it could be because we are overwhelmed really easily for whatever reason. And of course, that amount of regulation and that emotional weight can vary a lot, right? Our window of tolerance changes, where we can handle more stressors than at other times. And sometimes we are at our capacity for whatever reason. So just remember that people experience life differently. Okay, the third is something that a lot of us call learned helplessness. And this is when a person has been through enough situations where their effort genuinely did not change the outcome. So the brain is really, really good at generalizing some things and really, really good at simplifying some things. And in this situation, this is a generalization, and your brain concludes reasonably, why should I even try? Trying hasn't worked before. From the outside, it looks like apathy. I don't care, and I don't care that I don't care. But on the inside, it actually is a rational conclusion drawn from real evidence. And it's that I have tried and nothing has changed. I have done a million diets and I haven't lost weight. I have, tried to save money or, whatever. And my outcome still is the same. And again, the outside, we just see that they gave up too quickly. Now, this last one that I thought about is specifically for high achievers, and that is sometimes good enough is not a failure. One of my kids was doing an online class and really procrastinated the majority of it until like 2 days before it was due. And this child did probably 75% of the class in 2 days, got a C in the class. And he said that it just isn't worth all the extra effort to get a better grade because in his mind, it didn't matter. And I just think that's super interesting. Like with this child of mine who I love was totally content with a C and spending 4 hours, maybe 3 hours, maybe 2 hours and doing this entire semester online course. And I thought, I could never do that. Okay. Well, that's a lie. I could do that, I guess, someday if I retrained my brain to stop being an overachiever, which I am working on. But sometimes good enough is just that. It's good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be the best. And sometimes it's value. Sometimes we treat maximizing, optimizing, and constant striving as the only acceptable way to live. And then we use that standard and look at someone else who has opted out of that race and we call them lazy. But what if they're not underfunctioning? What if they simply never agreed to participate in the race that we run of we have to be the best, right? Their nervous system isn't broken. Their priorities are just different from ours. And honestly, the person who's content enough may be a lot more wiser and can rest more and enjoy life more than the people like me who might be white knuckling it or, always pushing ourselves and demanding more of ourselves. And this leads to burnout. There are also other threads like depression, flatten motivation completely. There's also conditions like ADHD and ADD that can make the bridge between intention and action really genuinely hard to cross. And again, that person isn't choosing not to act. They literally just cannot get the signal across and their brains just work differently. And sometimes what looks like laziness is the body correctly demanding that we need to be in recovery. And that person has just been overriding their signals and ignoring things for far too long. So this is where it all lands for me. Almost nobody wakes up and chooses to be less than they could be. And I have thought about this time and time again and learned about it. You physiologically cannot do any better than you're doing in any moment. And what we call laziness is nearly always something else. I really do believe that it's often just a nervous system protecting its energy. A person whose effort reward history is different from ours. It's somebody living by values that we never bothered to understand or see things from their perspective. It's when we're not using curiosity and questioning and, okay, tell me about that. Or, it's a body finally insisting on the rest that it is owed and needs. And that asks something of us in, I think, two directions. First, for yourself. It means the next time that you are stuck, frozen, unable to start, I want you to drop the word lazy entirely. I really have been trying to not use this word in my vocabulary. And I really have been trying to get curious instead. Ask what your system is protecting you from. Like, what is the danger that you see in this situation? Are you actually depleted? Is there some fear on the other side that you're trying to avoid? What is stopping you from this? What past experiences have helped your brain predict the outcome that may or may not happen? And then ask what one small step would feel like to help you feel safe instead of, trying to make a big, giant, long leap. And then for everyone else, the people that you've quietly judged, I want to offer you a question to replace the judgment. Instead of asking, why are they so lazy? I want you to ask, what would make rest or avoidance the smart choice for this person's system right now? Why are they choosing this? What am I missing? What in their perception in their life has created this loop where they, again, see that there's no use putting forth the effort. For whatever reason, they are overwhelmed. Why is the juice not worth the squeeze to them? I think about that all the time. So when we can be curious, when we can approach ourselves and other people with curiosity, it can dissolve the contempt, the judgment, the I'm right and they're wrong. And curiosity is where that compassion can start with ourselves and with other people. Because here's the truth that I keep coming back to. High achievers burning out and the so-called low achiever or, the lazy bum scraping by are not opposites. They are two nervous systems, each doing the best that it can with the wiring and the history that it was handed. So just like fight or flight is a nervous system response, we need to remember that shutdown is a nervous system response. Sometimes in these situations, one has learned that worth is earned through effort, and the other has maybe learned that effort isn't safe or it isn't worth it. Neither of them are lazy. Both of them deserve grace. And this includes you. This includes your coworkers. This includes your children, your students. So this is just the things I've been thinking after our series on work and play. Like why are people quote unquote lazy? And how can I better understand them and show up in a way that I want to? So I hope this episode landed. I hope that you can understand the reframes. And when you catch yourself reaching for the word lazy, when you're describing yourself or anyone else, I want you to pause and ask the better question, like, what is this person's system trying to do right now? How is their system trying to protect them? I would absolutely love to hear what comes up for you. If you know someone who's been beating themselves up with that word, or you're using that word to describe somebody else, I would love you to share this episode with them. And thank you for listening. Take care of your nervous system, and I will see you next time. Every week, you're learning something new here on this podcast, and that is a powerful first step. But guess what? Information alone doesn't create transformation. True change happens when you start to think differently and shift the nervous system patterns that drive your behavior. As a coach and an emotional resiliency expert, that is the work I do. I love to walk alongside you, whether it's one-on-one, in a small group that you choose, or with your workplace team. I can help you retrain your brain and nervous system so that stress no longer runs the show. You'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Let's do this work together.